Hey everybody, it's Marty the JavaScript Party. I'm my buddy Rhett. We're just getting our day started. Trying to get that coding part of my brain working so that I can have a productive day at work today. Um, the I guess the way my routine is starting to work out is I kind of do this. I kind of get my brain up and running, and then I log into work. I kind of make sure everything seems to be fine, and then we have a stand-up meeting, and then I see, because the thing is with my job is it's pretty stable. Like most of the day, most days you know what you're gonna work on, and then you do it, and then you have time to do it right. You know, to get everything exactly right, and then you you may very well at any given time you might at the at any stand up you might end up getting completely pulled in a different direction. But it only happens sometimes you go 6 8 weeks without it happening, and then sometimes you might go 3 days and then you get refocused, and then 3 days later you get refocused again. So the most important thing is a to do everything in as clean way as possible, because you're likely going to come back to the code at some point. You're going to have to take a step away from the code and then come back later, and to document things as well as you can absolutely document them, whether that's making videos, creating wiki articles, whatever you do, because the thing is like you are very likely to get pulled off, get deep dive into some other thing, and then pulled off of that back to what you were on and back to the thing you were deep diving on. And it is the sort of the nature of software development. It's really been like that in probably the last 4 or 5 jobs that I've had. So that's not a unusual thing, because the thing is like um, there's just a lot of moving parts around software development. The actual coding part is a big piece of it, but it's maybe 25% of the actual process of code getting to production. And so there's just like either you're going to be doing nothing for like half the time, just trying to get more and more, just trying to become more focused on whatever it is you're working on, or you're going to be getting moved around and get in, and having you do nothing for large extended periods of time is a huge waste of money, and it's not good for you as a developer. So I guess that's what it is. I don't really like to get too deep into what I'm working on before the stand up, because I know at the stand up I need to be very open minded to getting pulled into a different direction. Um, so that's that. But so I guess as part of my daily routine, I do check. I try to guess the temperature and what it feels like. So I think it is 70 degrees, and I think it feels like 82 degrees. So let's see what we got here. All right, so according to this, that's 72 degrees, and it feels like, I think we have to scroll down a little bit, 83 degrees. So I was pretty close. I was 2 degrees off on the actual temperature and 3 degrees off. And then there's no telling, because this is, I think, probably for my entire zip code, and I'm at the very northern extreme of my zip code, and it has been like 45 minutes since I've been outside. So that was a very, very good guess. Probably looks like at 6 p.m. tonight it's supposed to start raining, so that means I'll have plenty of time to, at 5, I knock off of work, and it looks like I'll have a chance to be able to get my run in without being in the rain. And if it is raining, it'll probably just be a light rain. So I'm assuming humidity's through the roof, which matters because, yeah, 97%, because that has a massive effect on my wife's, like how long it takes for her epoxy on her tumblers to cure. The higher the humidity, the longer it takes to cure. I think that, yeah, I think the higher temperature it cures faster, but the humidity hurts it. So anyway, so we have a bug, and basically what was happening before is you would you would go and you would add a viz, and then you'd add another viz, and then when you uh, came back, we close this, and then you would go to this view, and then you go back, and basically you would have two more vizzes over here. And so I fixed that bug, but then that opened the doors to a new bug. And this is why it's so hard to give a good estimation of how long a bug's going to take, because typically what happens is the bug is caused by something. When you fix that bug, a new bug appears. And theoretically, you should fix the bug, commit it, let QA find the next bug, and then fix the next bug. But there's also sort of another thing where you probably shouldn't just purposely put something that you know is broken out. So the reason you usually don't want to, um, or sometimes the argument for not fixing bugs that you know are there, but were created because you fixed another problem, so that caused a different bug or exposed a different bug, is because you end up changing things all over the code, and a lot of times management is trying to sort of control where changes are happening. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Like sometimes they have to get like in sections of the code validated, and they pay big money to get this like certifications on certain sections of the code. And then if you make changes, they're gonna have to make more certifications. So they would rather you not change an area of the code, because they have reasons. But it just depends on your situation. Different situations have different results. But the thing is that this problem is happening in our animation service. And basically the animation service, okay, so this is the story, right? So to me, anytime I'm making changes, I have to, do you want to hear? So see the little metal thing? Rhett has two of those, and she has one that's outside the camera, and somehow she managed to figure out how to pull the whole thing out, and it all collapsed. So she's a little shook at the moment, because she was just kind of like, oh my gosh, I don't know what happened here. It scared her pretty good. But here you go. There's your nut, Rhett. But anyway, so now we're working in a whole different section of the code, and we're going to be making changes to a whole different section of the code, which could be very disturbing to an organization where maybe they said, oh, okay, the problem, like you've reported that you need to make changes in the component itself. The component needs to clear itself when it's deleted. And then you made some changes in the visualization service because, we can look at this. So in our visualization service, we made some changes. Basically, instead of creating a new component every time, we're going to update the component, and based on that, we are going to either use our existing visualization, or we're going to create a new visualization, depending on whether the existing one is there or not. And so basically, before, what was happening is we were just creating a new one every time. We ended up with phantom visualizations. And a word like phantom visualizations is like kind of thing that like a manager can sort of glob onto and sort of say up the side, and so you're like, okay, so you fix all the phantom. We no longer have phantom visualizations. Well, now we have a new problem, and that's that when you come back, all of the visualizations are all stacked on top of each other. So my theory is, well, and I've had 24 hours to think about this since yesterday, but basically what's happening here is that anytime we add a new visualization, we change the hash, and then the animation service, knows to redraw everything. But the problem is when we just change from one view to another, there's no change to the hash because nothing changed, and so now when the animation system runs, it doesn't redraw because the hash hasn't been changed. So that's the story. Is that story right? I don't know. Is it wrong? I don't know. Is there a way that we can figure out? Like, is there something that we could do and then we could predict, oh, okay, because of this should work. If my story is correct, then the answer to that is yes. If the problem is that the hash hasn't changed, then all we have to do is do something to change the hash, and adding a new visualization will change the hash, right? So I've come up with a story and I've come up with a way to test my story. And if this doesn't work, then we know that I this was a red herring and I went down the wrong path. So let's go ahead and add a visualization. And sure enough, now all three are right? So now if we close that, go here, go back, now they're all stacked on each other, add a new visualization, and we're right. So it's very clear that the hash is the issue, that it only updates when the hash has been changed. So that leads us to a couple possible fixes. One is to alter the hash. But altering the hash would sort of defeat the purpose of the hash. The whole point of the hash is to say that the structure, internal structure is changed. So we need to redraw. But the internal structure did not change. So that would be a mistake, I think. It may not, like maybe we add a count of how many times we've flipped back and forth between views, and then add that count to the hash. I think that would be a very fair way of using the hash. I do think we would end up with some redraws that we needed to redraw, which I don't think would be a big deal at all at this point. But as we scale up, it may become a big deal, and so maybe we shouldn't go that route. But maybe we actually code it to the actual cause, right? And the actual cause is that we've changed views. So anytime we change the view, maybe we should just update the hash. I mean, not update the hash, but update redraw, redo whatever is doing it, right? And so we know that it's an animation service and that we were kind of hunting down this. And so just to be clear, I probably would not have come up with this exact solution if I'd have just kept working yesterday. I had to quit working because it was time for me to go to my actual job. But if I had just kept working yesterday, like I was going down this path and figuring out and I would have got it fixed. But the problem is I wouldn't have had a 24-hour period to sort of think through, okay, what's going on, like modify my story, figure out what all the different pieces are, right? So, and then this thing where this stays up is starting to become a bit of an issue, but I don't know. Because see, when you're using the mouse, it's definitely like, it would be nice if that closed down, but the problem is that if I'm only adding one, that's fine, but if I'm adding two, that would suck to have to come up here, click again, then click this again. So it's like, I don't know at this point. But it would also be nice to have just like a keystroke that we, like a control A or something that would add. And then you don't even have to go into the menus. You can just add them by hitting control A. That would be kind of cool. And see, these are ideas that we think of as we're moving through. And that kind of reminds me, like, I use ChatGPT a lot to help me with code. And like when you ask ChatGPT for help with something or some other AI, it actually already knows all those sorts of like little things that you're just going to want. Like it has a better grasp of all the options in front of you than you do. So I could see that it adding ChatGPT adding a little bonus. You could add shortcut keys that will add a visualization. But anyways, so we know we call this set position. I thought I saw something yesterday where it was like if animation doesn't equal, or maybe this is no. So it's saying, hey, do this. Okay, so all this, yeah, this is the set position gets called here. So that was pretty good. And then this is what is happening to cause this. So that is actually cool. I'm actually glad I pulled this away from this because maybe we just call this function from a new function that is watching the router. Maybe we can just watch the router and say anytime the route changes, run set position. That seems like a good idea. Um, so right now we do not have anything about the router, which doesn't make sense. But let's just ask ChatGPT. Um, and basically, it's kind of weird because I've done so much JavaScript and Angular and services and things like that, that like I can comfortably go and say, hey, ChatGPT, how do I do this specific thing and all that. And I was watching a video yesterday, and some guy was saying the reason it's so hard to remember things and to get a really good grip on software development when you're using AI to help you is you don't spend as much time on that. So then your brain doesn't allocate as much value to that information as if we like injected the like one of the routing services in here and then added like a watching like a subscription to the change, and we just sort of muddled through all that. Um, that if we did that, then our likelihood of remembering all that stuff goes way up. But if we don't do that, then if ChatGPT just gives us the answer and we just copy and paste it in there, we can read it and really understand it, but we're probably not going to remember it. And I'm okay with that in Angular because I've paid my dues. But I also have been working in C#.net a lot, and I very rarely have paid my dues in that, and I can't remember anything. I can't do anything without ChatGPT's help. So in ChatGPT, I actually talked about with this to ChatGPT, and it was just like, well, yeah, you need more practice. You know, you need to practice things. So we need to get together and set up like little practice routines in C#.net so that you can get this, so you can sort of, I guess they call it grok. It doesn't like to say the word grok, I don't think, because that's a competitor, but so that you can really internalize this knowledge. But so I'm going to go to ChatGPT, and I don't like the idea of using like Copilot or something like that. And the biggest reason I don't like to use Copilot is because it knows too much. So like when I work with ChatGPT, I try to obscure everything with my work, right? Like I like to only give it like variable names and stuff. I don't like to give it actual keys. I don't like to actually give it uh, any specific information about like URLs, anything like that about my work. Copilot has all that stuff because it's literally looking at your code. So it has all the passwords, it has everything, right? So I don't like the idea of Copilot because you have no control as the developer over the context of the information that it has. Whereas with ChatGPT, I do have full control of that. Okay, so I have a service, an Angular service, and I have a function that I would like to call anytime the route changes. Boom. Okay. So yeah, this is very similar to our other navigation end. So I guess at this point, it's important to look at my other navigation end and see if we want to sort of reuse whatever, like if we want to pull that code out in a reusable way. Or maybe it already is pulled out. I know we did a lot of work around navigation end. So, oh, that's our thing. So, this sure does seem. So it seems like yeah. So this is kind of nice. But I mean, really, it's not doing very much, right? Um, so this is a one-liner that just subscribes to the and subscribes to this event and tells it to do this, and then this just handles it. It does not feel like it feels like the abstraction, the process of abstracting this information out has already been done for us with this. Um, so it doesn't feel like there's any. It feels like it would be very, very like adding if we did sort of pull something out so that it is a so that it's a reusable, like in this application, that I literally would be adding another layer of abstraction for no reason at all. That's what it seems like to me. I might not be right on that, but that's what it seems like to me. At a job, would they likely, if somebody was doing a PR, would they likely be like, oh, let's create this into some sort of reusable thing, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, they probably would. And they'd probably be like, and then, yeah, you'd have this other layer of abstraction, and then all the other developers that came after you would be like, I don't understand what this is doing. And it'd be like, yeah, it's basically a layer of abstraction for one line of code. And then that one line of code is already abstract line of code. So I think that I would just want to duplicate this code. And then a lot of, also, like if I, so this would be the kind of thing that like I would be afraid. I was actually just thinking like if you had a Sonic, I think it's called Sonic. It's this um, uh, this code analyzing system that sort of just looks at your static code analyzing system that looks for duplicate, and there would be a lot of fear that this would tick off, would make Sonic throw an error. I do not think it would. A second ago, I did think it would, but now I don't think it would, because to that, I believe this would look like one line of code, and obviously you can duplicate one line of code. Now, event instance of, I don't know, it seems weird to have a to create like a whole service or try to use one of the utility services that literally just returns true or false if the event instance is navigation end. As you can tell, I do put a lot of thought into this kind of thing because it's just um, from a technical perspective, it's not very interesting, but from a political job perspective, it is the source of misery because it's just so easy to botch this. So you're adding this risk into your application where someone can really make a mistake. Another place that someone can make a mistake for absolutely no benefit whatsoever. But since this is my account, I'm not going to. Since this is mine, I'm not going to do it. Um, it does make a lot of sense to like instead of naming like the next one, I won't name router subscription. Router um, um, subscription is a good name, but that's where you have a lot of risk of getting nailed for reusing for copying code. So you don't want to have the same name in multiple places. Again, for no technical reason whatsoever, only for political reasons. But so over here, I'm gonna create a subscription because, and the other thing is there's no good technical reason at this time to even subscribe to this because this animation service should never, ever, 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 ever be destroyed. But I don't know. We could end up with some other desire in the future where we end up saying, oh no, we want to destroy the animation service and create a new animation service or something like that. Oh, wrong place. So you probably want to name this something sort of like, so if you're an English speaker, then you probably want to go from the least specific to the most specific, because in English, the last word is the most important word when we combine words. So if we say fighter jet, then it's a kind of jet. If we say a jet fighter, so it's a kind of fighting person, like someone who's really fast, who moves really fast. That would be a jet fighter. But a fighter jet would be a kind of jet that's designed to fight, not like an airline jet. Um, so that's how like English works. But there are just as many languages out there that it's the other way around, um, which is one reason it's very difficult for me to work with like Spanish speakers, because Spanish speakers, it is like they say like uh, if we would say, oh, that's a green fence, but they would say it's offensive green, and so they'll make their variable names based on that, and then it gets very, very confusing. It adds an extra layer of sort of confusion when you're trying to work with stuff. And sometimes you are working and you're right at the edge of the amount of confusion that you can tolerate. Um, so that extra little bit pushes you over the edge. I don't know. I guess this guy should go up right before 3, the 3 import. I don't know. But it seems like the 3 import and subscription should go before my specific services. And yeah, it seems like it should go like that. Yeah, it feels like those guys go up here. All right, now animation. Why do I have? Okay, so now in the constructor, I need to add a. So this is complaining because it didn't get assigned. I gave it a type, it didn't get assigned. Doesn't necessarily always happen in older versions of Angular. In older versions of Angular, that's okay. And I believe you can put like there's like a thing you can do to tell it that don't worry about it, it'll be taken care of. So in this constructor, it is complaining. It says, hey, it's not being done. I think add undefined. So this first one will basically say or undefined. Sometimes I go down that road. It does add an extra level of like complication when you're trying to use the thing, because you have to check to see if it's undefined beforehand and all that. But if that is actually the truth, like it could be undefined, then you probably should add that there, and then you'll get extra help. But that's only like Angular 15 plus, I think. Add definite assertion. So add a definite, I believe this is the exclamation mark thing that I was, yeah. So if you put a little exclamation mark, that's saying, don't worry about it, I got you. It's going to happen. There's some system outside of what you can see that is going to take care of this, which is not the truth at this point. And then it looked like it offered me a third option, which I don't remember a third. Add initializer to property. So it's like, hey, you can actually assign it and make it that. I don't think that. I think what we actually want to do is just set it in here. And let's see how we set it over here. So this is going to complain because we don't have our router, which is what we got right there. And I would say I have like a 95% confidence that this is going to what the path we're going on. So the path we're on right now is to say that anytime at all, period, if the route changes, go ahead and just recalculate everything. And then I do like this name, but again, this would be like kind of a red flag, having the same name in multiple places for like Sonic. Sonar Cube. Sonar Cube is what I'm trying to think of. Yeah. So, for something like Sonar Cube, and it is kind of funny because you'll be working along. This always happens, right? You'll just be working along. Everything's fine. Everything works fine. Blah 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 blah. And then somebody at the director level will will hear about Sonar Cube. They'll go to some sort of, like, who knows? They go to some sort of event and they find out that there's this thing called Sonar Cube. And then everything's been fine. There's no problems. Then they'll run Sonar Cube and they'll be like, Sonar Cube found 25 million issues in your application and 15 of them are critical. And, like, things that it calls critical will be like you could go, like, if you are ridiculous, right? So it'll say like let's say inside of your CSS, let's say you have this, and then let's say I had another one that said, let's say I had one that was like border, and this is a very PX1 solid white. This is a very CSS thing. This is something that you would do in CSS. And then say you said top viz, and then you say border left is equal to 1 px solid red. And then, like, you would get a critical. It would be like, you have a critical error. A critical, like, this could, like, be the end of the world error, because this was set in all 4 sides and then that changed it. And it'd be like, and the director will be like, oh my god, we have 58 critical things. We got to fix those 58 critical things because, it's the end of the world, blah, blah, blah. And they'll make a huge scene about it. Like, they'll go crazy in front of the VPs and stuff. And then they're in a, like, you're in a, as a developer, you're in a really tough spot because you're like, there's absolutely nothing critical about this. Like, and so then what you end up doing is you end up saying border right, border top, border bottom is white, and then border left is red. Oh, the world is saved now. So anyways, that's like, that's why you kind of have to be on ultra, like, thinking about, okay, what would Sonar Cube say about this? Because, that is just an easy thing for the developer, for them to get upset about. So anyways, how handle router events would be a really good name, but that would definitely probably set off Sonar Cube as duplicate code, even though it's just, you're handling a router event, and you're handling a router event in animation service, and but it's just not worth the battle. It's easier just to, like, name everything in a way that you don't end up provoking the provoking Sonar Cube. It's just one of those realities. Okay, so let's find that again. Basically, I just want to inject my router. So this is what we want. Now, I found that a lot of times when you inject the router, you'll get, it'll pull it in from the wrong place. So that's something to watch out for. It'll often pull it in from testing, which you actually want the real one. So this is the one you really have to watch out for. And this is the one this is one time where you really just need to take a good hard look at wherever it injects it from. And sometimes it'll just inject it without telling you. And then that's where you got to make sure. You probably want to put these up top, right next to core. So if you see the word testing in here, you got the wrong router. And so in the constructor, I think I'm in the wrong. Yeah, I was in the wrong. I need to be in the service. That's this guy right here. Man, it's amazing how much stuff we inject in here. All right, let's go up here and import our router. Probably should go before that. And then we want to inject our router. And like that. So like this is just the way this is done. So you are very unlikely to get hit. Okay, so this is handle events for animation. So I added the 4 animations for the just so that we don't end up with like a duplicate error. Then I think we can probably copy this because it's pretty much the exact same code that we want. We just want to add 4 animations to the end of the name. And then I think this comes from, I don't know where that comes from, but it can't find it at all. So let's go ahead and find that. So that's wild that it couldn't find, oh, because it's the wrong name. Let's hit back. And I believe it was in there. Hit types, I don't think we need that comma. And then instance of navigation end. So it knows where that is. Let's go. Once I get like to this size, I really do like to just put these on different lines. And again, the only reason is because it makes the chances of getting a git conflict much lower. Like the chances of having a git conflict on that line right there is so high, or are so high. Because, you know, if we want to make it, like let's say we go, somebody says, oh, okay, we're going to animate lights, and somebody else is working on animating the visualizations or something like that. And then we start bringing in different types from this interfaces, we are most assuredly going to have git conflicts. And, you know, no one needs that. So anyways, I think that's good. See, inject right there, this top one is like right at the edge of what I would normally, and I do normally like to do it like that. And so, okay, so now we've got that all nice and cleaned up there. And then instead of this set layout, we want to run set position. No. I thought we had a function that would just set visualization layout. No, because this is a bummer. Okay, so this one, oh, that's kind of a bummer. So this, I was like, oh, I'm glad I separated that out. But the problem is this iterates over all of them and calls that, and I don't want to do that. So let's say I'm just going to add like a flag in here, a defaulted. So ignore hash. And we're going to set that to a default value of false. So that means we don't have to go around everywhere and update. In the past, you would have to, before they added this default, you would have to go around to every function. Oh crap, I gotta go. Every function and add it, but now we don't. And so now we can bring this onto a line. Man, I was having a good time coding there. And we're just gonna say or ignore hash. All right, let's see what happens here. Uh-oh. Oh. Visualization layout. I think I can hit this and it'll take me right where I need to be. True. I mean, a big part of being a successful developer today is like doing stuff that makes people who review your code feel smart. Okay, so that did not work. All right, so we'll have to figure out, I wonder if there's a console log error while we're here. No, I don't know why that didn't work. It's probably a timing issue. My guess is that this is happening before the redraw. So anyways, yeah, we'll have to figure that out. I guess I should. Log. So that all of that might have been for naught. It may not work at all. Handle. Because this thing might be handling. So we could add a set timeout or whatever, but I would rather, if at all possible, avoid that. Anyways, yeah, I have to start work in 2 minutes. Happy coding, everybody. Bye.